Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, welcome to the Rich and Rich Entrepreneurs Blog Talk Radio Show for Tuesday, 29 December 2009. I'm your host, Desiree Richardson, and I'm coming to you from North Chicago, as I do every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tonight we have the author Jeremy Williams, who we will be interviewing. He's the author of Push Nevahda and the Vicious Circle, Scenes from the Random Life, and also Detroit, the Black Bottom Community. He has a BA in History and is pursuing an MA in African American Studies. One of the things that I really enjoy about doing this show is that I have the opportunity to talk to some pretty incredible people that are really working on whatever their craft is. The last couple of shows, what we've had a couple of authors that have come on. We had Adra Young and Tracy Christian last week, Jeremy Williams this week. And if you know anything about the Blog Talk Radio show for Rich and Rich Entrepreneurs, what we're doing is that we are featuring members of our network. And so we'll have members on that will have businesses that range from being authors and many, many more. So just stay tuned with us, and we will bring you the best people that we can. Hi, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Ms. Richardson?
I'm doing really good. I just kind of introduced you and kind of went over Rich and Rich Entrepreneurs. I kind of let my listeners know again that this show basically is for our members who are on our Rich and Rich Entrepreneurs Network, and those members range from musicians, artists, small business owners, Avon reps, Mary Kay reps, you name it, I have it on my network. So we're really, really glad to have you tonight. So
thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So tell us, what made you become a writer?
Wow, that's
I know that's the cliche. We're gonna get through all of those cliche questions first and get really to the meat of things that we really want to hear about. We got to get these out the way because people always want to know.
Sure. What made me want to become a writer? I think I was just born one. I think writers are born, really. And at some point, they arrive, they awaken and say, hey, okay, this is what I want to do, and they never can put the pen down. So the same thing happened to me. I started writing when I was very young, maybe 9, poetry, went to high school, wrote plays, and did newspaper articles throughout the transformation, really. And then wrote a book, too, as you know.
And how old were you when you wrote your first book?
Wow. My first unpublished book, I might have been 15, but last year, what year is it, 2009? 2008, last year, I wrote my first book published, and then this year I wrote an academic book, like a history book, a history book. So, and I'm going to keep writing. Will I get paid for it?
And I noticed that history book that you actually wrote, that was more, that was also geared towards the Black Bottom community as well in Detroit.
Yeah, that's the subject, Black Bottom, yeah.
Okay. Now, that book that you wrote, is that available, I was actually looking for that one because, I'm not a history buff or anything like that, but I like hearing about, our cities and, what's going on. I thought one of the interesting things that I read in one of the reviews is that Billie Holiday actually came out of that area. So that history book, is that something that's, available through a university, or where do you get that from?
Well, interestingly, I just got a letter from the publisher, and it is in the process of being integrated into university curriculum. But it's available, of course, online, my website, Amazon, and since it's a local regional book, it's available in any Barnes & Noble bookstore, Walden Book Borders in Michigan, and other mom-and-pop stores throughout the Detroit area. Livonia, some suburbs, and all of that information is at my website. But you can walk into any store and get it.
Okay.
In Michigan.
Okay. And, I was very, very interested in that. So the Black Bottom community, Detroit, it's actually named that because of the soil that's in Detroit. Yeah,
a lot of people believe it's because of black people. It didn't really become black area significantly until the late 20s, early 30s. As we know, Cadillac settled in 1701, the French, and then the second European immigration movement of 1880s, where you got the Jews, Russians, and Italians, and Greeks, and Polish people, Irish, of course, coming in. Europeans were the first settlers, and that's why the first chapter is called European immigrants, because they settled Black Bottom first. There had always been black people there. Cadillac brought slaves with him, for instance, and there were always blacks running away. The Underground Railroad went through Detroit, so there were always blacks in small numbers, but not to the degree it ultimately became a black area.
So what made you do this type of book? You know, what was the thing that drew you and you just knew, hey, I want to write about Detroit, the Black Bottom community?
Well, I grew up hearing about it all my life, born and raised in Detroit. There's always the stories. My mom and dad went on their first date to the Flame Bar to see Billie Holiday. So I was always hearing about Black Bottom, and then after I got a degree in history, and I realized that there wasn't a lot in the historiography of Detroit. Nobody was really talking about Black Bottom. They were mentioning Black Bottom, but there had never been a book on it. And like any egotistical historian, I wanted to be the first to do it, really.
Awesome. Yeah, you know, one of the things that I was looking at, you know, I was just thinking about when you said that you looked and you didn't really see a whole lot on the Black Bottom, just a little bit, and you want to be the first because, you know, with entrepreneurs, and that's what I am to my soul, and also, you know, I love reading, you always want to find a niche. And so you want to find something that somebody hasn't done, because if it's been done and it's been done too much, then, you know, that boat is kind of sailed. So I think that's awesome.
Sure.
Now, the other book that you also have, and we're going to come back to this one because I'm really interested in this one. I got some more thoughts on it. You also have what's called the Push Nevahda, the Vicious Circle.
Push Nevahda and the Vicious Circle, Scenes from a Random Life. That's the name of that. It's my first novel, really.
And with that one, I was actually looking, and one of the things that I wanted to know is that when you're writing about Push Nevahda, that's the character that that story is basically based on and what he's going through.
Are you there?
Yeah,
Hello?
I am. Yes.
Yeah, it's about a guy who's, a lot of things are happening. He's going through a midlife, what he thinks is a midlife crisis, and he's at the point in his life where he's beginning to question not just the direction of his life, but in the sense of looking at religion, sex, definitely religion and sex and people and relationships. And what happens is he has random meetings at this bar with a group of his friends, intellects, and they are talking about everything from philosophy to poetry to writing, sex, everything. And that ultimately is really the context of the book. This bar called Willie's Place, and there's a chapter called Willie's Place.
And, you know, I was looking at it, and, you know, and I was thinking about it, and I could kind of picture it in my head, you know, a cafe somewhere in Detroit, you know, with, you know, this group of 5 that are getting together, and they're talking about whatever, and I'm sure, you know, within that group of 5, you've got those that are a little bit closer than the others, and...
It wasn't really like that. They all were on the same level. It wasn't any behind-the-scenes thing, really. And I don't want to give too much of the book away, but
yeah,
they were all,
definitely.
Yeah, they were all on the same level, and a lot of interesting things happened in the book in the process of this guy finding himself, really.
And this is
and
your
by the end
latest
of the
book.
Huh?
Go ahead. I was just saying this is your latest book, so Push Nevahda, that's your newest one.
No. The newest one, which just came out in October, is the Black Bottom book, Detroit, the Black Bottom Community.
Okay, that's the newest release. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that, you know, I kind of think about, you know, whenever I have a writer on or, you know, with anybody with their business or anything is, you know, what kind of advice can you give to the next person? if you had somebody that was looking at, wanting to be a writer, what kind of advice could you give them, and how would they actually start?
The first thing to do is to write. A writer is really one who writes, really. To always write. And then with this whole new technological thing, there are many ways to get your writing out into public attention. You have blogs, and the internet's just open up a whole new avenue of how writers can put their writing out there and get feedback, whatever the feedback is. So the first thing I would say is write. Don't write to publish. I think if you stick with it and you're serious about it, then at some point you're going to publish, whether you self-publish or get a contract or whatever. But to focus on writing, and another very important thing, because I review books too, and I see this problem all the time. But just as much as you're writing, then you should be reading too.
Exactly.
Just writing and reading, studying the craft, but writing is very important, and reading. They go hand in hand. So that's what I would say. Don't worry about when the time comes where you feel as though you're polished enough to present it to the world, so to speak, then you'll know. But just start writing. It's good to put it out there in the internet and find some kind of group of people whose opinion you respect, that can give you feedback, critical feedback. You can always find somebody to say, oh, I like it or I don't, but to get critical feedback as well throughout this process of writing and honing your craft, and that's easy to do.
So right now, I love reading, so I read all the time. I read everything. My husband he kind of makes fun of me because I can grab it up and I can start reading. It doesn't matter what it is. I just like to have something in my hand, something around that I can read, and if I'm around the house and I'm like, surrounded with a bunch of books and plus my internet. So I can do that. But as far as, like, writing, I wrote all, like, my papers in college and everything like that. Do you think that that'll give me enough to, go ahead and move forward and write something?
Well, it depends on what you want to write. There's a difference between academic writing and, creative writing, for instance. It depends on or novel writing or whatever. It depends on what you want to write. But, yeah, that's definitely a good start. Yeah, sure. Any kind of writing is good, whatever kind of writing it is. It's good. Again, just continue to write and tighten up your skills and to find some kind of community of like-minded people whose opinions you can trust and respect. That's very important. Critical readers.
Since you mentioned communities, what kind of communities do you actually belong to where you have the opportunity to be surrounded by writers?
Well, at this point, I try to surround myself with other authors, of course, Adrian Young, Tracy Christian. Then I'm a member of the Detroit Writers Guild, and online there. My first novel, I would post excerpts of various chapters on Black Planet. And
oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Get it out there however you can. But at the same time, I have friends, who have degrees in English, for instance. And I'm very cautious about those types of people, letting them read my work, because they're going to come in from a completely different, technical academic perspective, and that's not always what I'm looking for. You definitely want to find a community of writers whose work, and then, general people, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, your neighbor, let them read it too, because those are the people who are buying books.
Well,
so you want to be putting your stuff out to these two particular communities: people who buy books and people who write books.
You know what? You kind of laughed about that Black Planet, but I'm going to, tell my listeners about Black Planet because I'm on there. I got Rich and Rich Entrepreneurs on there. I'm not ashamed of it. One of the things about it, the network, you have those. It's like a MySpace. You've got those who are there from MySpace for the social, just aspects of it, and then you've got tons of artists, businesses that are also on there because of the large group that they have on there. And Black Planet has a large network. I don't know. I don't remember the numbers right now, but I know it seems like they're like in the 100,000s. So if you're talking about
Black Planet is in the millions, man.
Is it in the millions? I knew it was high.
Yeah.
I knew it was high. So
and watch this. Even Facebook. I'm working on a new novel now, and I put excerpts of the new stuff on Facebook, and I get good feedback. And a lot of people in my Facebook book network are readers and writers.
Yeah.
People who are publishing books, people who are writing books, and then people who are reading. A woman got on my Facebook and liked what I was doing with this new book and bought the first book. So, again, it all over the place. Well, how do you get it out there? Then I have a blog. I have Push Nevahda Review, and I'm always putting stuff out there. And then at the same time, I'm always trying to write and hone my craft by writing book reviews. Any kind of writing I can do, I try to do it, and always keep it out there, pushing it out to people.
And I think that one thing that you're mentioning, and I think that the listeners can tell, is that you're actively doing things to promote your book. So you're not waiting for, the big publishing company to do it all for you. You've got some social networking going on. You're doing some blogging right now. And it's a lot of the things that, and you said earlier, you can do these things yourself. And there's because we've got this wonderful thing called technology. And it seems like you're making use of it all.
Well, watch this. When I signed the contract I was doing a book proposal. As a matter of fact, they sent me the book proposal for Detroit Black Bottom Community. And one of the questions they ask you, and all publishers are doing, big publishers. I'm not talking about self-publishing. I'm talking about traditional publishers. They want to know how you plan to promote the book. They want to know what is the market? What kind of market are you going to push it? As a matter of fact, I was living in Arizona at the time, and I'm doing a Detroit book, and one of the things they were concerned about before they sent me the contract was whether or not I was going to be available to be in Detroit to push it. So it's not just you get this wonderful contract and they do the rest of the work. No, it never ends there. You're always promoting your book any way you can. And, of course, your editor or publisher is going to support you. But that might just be something as simple as, hey, I'm doing a lecture at a library. My publicist will send them some posters. But they want you out there actively pushing your book.
And I think that if you're doing a blog and if you're involved in, social networking, or if you're, whatever, offline, and we'll talk to you about that too, ask you that question. But any of those things that you're doing, probably before you even get your book out there, you've already got, a network that's built. And so they're probably just waiting. Exactly.
Even the offline network, meeting Adria Young and Tracy Christian was a good thing for me. Those guys are out there, and I'm always feeding off of their energy as well. That's why it's important for me. What I've decided to do is keep a close network with other writers, people who are writing and can understand what you're trying to do. And we're always sending each other tips and hookups and all of that kind of stuff. And so the offline, of course, as you know, the offline network is extremely vital. Getting out, I don't care if it's going to a club. At Adria, though, they do this kind of stuff. Going to a club just to show your face. You may not be able to have a book table, but just to meet and greet and other people, and you'd be surprised at who you may meet.
Exactly. And, you become more real when people start to actually, read your blog, see you out in public, or, see you on a network, like, okay, this is a real person, and the more real you are to them, then the more they want to, they want to be a part of what you're doing. So that might end up, they're a customer for life.
Oh man, I've met people who offered to that were believing in what I was doing and just offered to be my assistant on a book signing tour or whatever. And because people are coming out and they're glad to meet you, and you're being down to earth with them and all of that kind of stuff, and it's out there, man. And at the same time, you're building a brand. Whether it's Jeremy Williams, Adria Young, or Push Nevahda or whatever. And it's one thing to buy a person's book, but to be able to meet them and socialize with them on a very intimate and personal level is good. And people look for that too, because a lot of popular writers are very inaccessible.
What if you've got somebody right now, Jeremy, that they've got a book, and they're kind of ready, and they're looking for a publisher or an agent? What do? They got that product, and it's ready to go, and now they're sitting and they're wondering, where the heck what's my next step?
Get an editor. Get an editor. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, because I meet those kind of people.
I'm serious. It's a good answer, because I was looking around, and the writing, and sometimes what people send sometimes for just simple things, editing and, making sure you proofread, that's important.
Well, again, I do meet those kind of people, and I get, as I'm on book tour, people are giving me discs or manuscripts to read all the time, and then I review books, and I've reviewed books that were wonderful books, but I don't know, it's lost some kind of credibility or respectability because the editing was bad. So the first thing you do when you get a product and you feel like, okay, I've tightened it up, I've worked on it for 12 years, right, and I'm ready to submit it to an agent or whatever, get or an agent, or publisher, get an editor. Spend the extra $200-300 and get somebody, a professional, to go over the book for you. As a matter of fact, an agent will tell you, you can't even step to a traditional publisher without an agent, by the way. An agent is going to tell you to do that too. When you call an agent for the interview, they're going to say, well, it hasn't been edited. And a lot of times they'll ask you who, because this is a network, very close society, and they'll ask for a name. And then if you send it to them and any flaw, they will throw it in a can and will not take your call.
Wow.
So get an editor. Get an editor.
Get an editor.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, you heard that. Get an editor first if you got that masterpiece out there. The other thing that I was going to go back to, one of the things that I found really interesting about Detroit, the Black Bottom community, we had books, and, we do this sometimes where I work at, and, we've got a library, and it's just, like, great, and she'll, every quarter she gives us, like, all of these books, and, there was a book that, I got, and I was, like, so amazed about it because it was talking about a black American male and his bicycle skills, and he was like doing his bike, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, God, this would be like really one of those things that Spike Lee should like bring to the limelight or whatever. I never even knew anything about this, and so I'm just going back to what you said about the Black Bottom community. There wasn't a whole lot out there, and just kind of bringing it to the forefront. How are you marketing that book right now, since it's your latest book?
Well, one of the most effective ways to do it, and that my publisher is doing, is I do a lot of library lectures, going to libraries or historical societies. My February is filled up with this kind of stuff. But the universities, I personally want to see my book integrated into university curriculum, colleges and stuff. And then the schools. My publisher is marketing it towards schools to try to K through 12, to high school and middle school, to get it into classroom. Principals have called.
Yeah. And then
put this in our class. Go ahead.
And has anyone used it at all in a classroom setting yet at all?
I have heard that 2 teachers have used them. I don't know the name of the school in Detroit. But they wouldn't go through. They wouldn't call me. They would call the Arcadian. Somebody told me, "Oh, my son said," who had bought the book. My son said the teacher is using the book to some degree. I don't know, but it is being pushed into university and middle schools and high schools.
And you're talking about your month of February is kind of booked up. What do you got going on for the month of for February?
Wow.
Where can people, if somebody wants to, they hear this show and they want to get out and they want to meet you and get your book and get it autographed or something like that?
Go to my website and click on the tour link, and it'll take you to my tour schedule. But I've been on book tour since October the 26th, and I want to be touring this book straight through May. And I'm getting calls and more dates packed on and stuff. But February, that's Black History Month. It's a black book, yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to be doing a lot of library lectures, a lot of them. So people can come out and get a book and get it signed. And then Barnes & Noble, I'm still doing Walden and Borders book signings and stuff like that. So I'm very accessible, and I am on book tour, and I'm going to be in Detroit, and people can get at me. And then, hey, you might be able to, I might post on my tour. I'm going to be down at Mr. Mike's Club. Come on down and hang out with me. But I'm out there.
Yeah. For that website that you just mentioned, can you tell us what that website is so that listeners can actually go to that and they can find out, where you're going to be at and find out more about your books?
It's pushnevahda.com, PUSHNEVAHDA.com.
And if you guys want to actually, if you go back to the Blog Talk Radio show page for this, we have Jeremy Williams' books, both the Detroit, the Black Bottom Community, and Push Nevahda, the Vicious Circle. We actually do have both of those books listed there, so you can do that as well. When you did your research for the Black Bottom Community, do you have an assistant doing your research, or is this something purely you're doing all the research on your own?
I'm doing all the research on my own. Burden Historical Collections at Detroit Library, U of M, Bentley, Wayne State, Walter Reuther Archives, those three particularly. Some stuff from Michigan State, but not a lot. I'm working on a new book, the Detroit Urban League, for the same publisher, and most of that will come from U of M because they have the Detroit Urban League papers housed there.
Okay.
So, but I did all of my own stuff. And
for, I know right now you're working on your MA. Is that something you're doing now, or is that something? Okay. So you're busy.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm also in February I'm gonna begin writing a play. I already got a pretty good draft of it. Writing a play based on the Black Bottom book.
Oh wow!
And I think I'm going to be working with Charles Wright African American Museum with that project. They have definitely expressed interest in producing it for me. I hope they're still interested. But I'm going to definitely write the play. I just won't be able to start on that until February. Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things I always tell folks, you know, because I love to read, and I'll say it again, I love to read. And so one of the things, whenever I'm reading or anything like that, and I know that I'm going to like the author, then I'm going to go and get everything they have, because usually when you read the first book, then you're going to want to read something else that they, you know, have. So we already know that Jeremy has, you know, those two books. So when you go and you buy both of them, just save yourself some headache, because I can't tell you the amount of times I've actually had my husband tracing around to bookstore so I can get a particular book, and you don't want to wait to order it, you know, especially when you just finish one.
Yeah, another thing is, again, I review books, and even my, and I'm always writing small, short stories or whatever. Go to my blog spot, Push Nevahda Review. No, it's pushnevahda.wordpress.com. And I'm writing all over the place. So go there too.
And you know, I noticed that when I was going through some of your website earlier today, you write for a couple of newspapers as well.
Yes, I haven't. I haven't in a while. A lot of them are online, but because I'm trying to finish this novel, and then I have the new history book. I haven't been able to do a lot of that lately. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of reviewing my last two books for a couple of months because I got to get my own stuff done here. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you get kind of overwhelmed.
I can imagine. When you're doing these tours, are you doing the tours with any other authors? Will there be anybody else?
Yeah.
Or is it going to purely?
Well, that's an interesting story. Yes, I have done stuff with Adria Young, but I am looking to do dual book signings with other folks. I did stuff with a couple of authors. Definitely Brenda Mizell at Ann Arbor. It was National Authors Day or something like that. We did that together. But yeah, I haven't done much of it, but I'm looking forward to doing. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with Adria Young. Definitely.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm very open to it.
Yeah, we also want to have Adria Young and Tracy Christian back on our show because they were involved, in doing so much that, you know, we just couldn't get it in 1 hour on the show. We need to really kind of devote some more time to both of those young ladies with what they're doing.
Yeah, they're doing a whole lot of stuff. They are just a network machine.
Now, are you asked?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to ask, are you asked, to go and, do any type of public speaking event, on anything? Because you're a reviewer and you got this busy life going on.
Yes, I have. The Detroit Writers Guild actually asked me to do a workshop, two. One is for film, screenwriting or something like that. And the other one is a workshop on relationships.
Wow. I did read that. I did read that a little bit, that you kind of devil in that. Now, is any of your blog like set up for like the relationship question answers or anything like that?
I do a lot of that on Facebook, and then people. I mean, the stories are right, especially the short stories and the first book I did. There's a lot of relationship stuff going on in my short stories and stuff like that too, and. One of the members in the Writers Guild got wind of it and said, hey, we want you to do this workshop. So I'm in the process of setting a date for that, too.
Awesome. Now, you say you answer some of those questions on Facebook?
Well, yeah, Facebook, you put out, you can do, put writing up, your writing up. They call it notes, really, in a little note blog thing. And I'm always doing that kind of stuff. Maybe not
and
questions.
And what is your Facebook account if people are interested in, because you said the thing about relationships, if people are interested in getting on Facebook?
They can find that link from the from my website page, but it's called Push Nevahda Review.
Okay.
Yeah, Push Nevahda is my writing name, really. As a matter of fact, my next novel is I'm gonna use that pen name, Push Nevahda.
Okay. Now, are there any other networks that listeners, fans can connect with you on?
Michigan Literary Network, and I'm really looking forward to doing some things with Sylvia Hubbard. I've reached out to her. We've been trying to create some kind of dialogue so we can figure out how we can work together. But Michigan Literary, I try to stay in the context of Detroit, really, because that's where a lot of my creative writing is. That's the context for a lot of my creative writing, and I love Detroit, and there are just too many novels to write on the context of Detroit. So I try to stay in that network community.
Now, you talked a lot about that you do reviewing and everything like that. How does someone get something reviewed by you if they want something reviewed?
It's really easy. You go to send an email. A lot of people send me their book via get in contact with me via Facebook, or they'll send me an email or whatever. People are reading my reviews and say, hey, I want you to read my review. And you can go to my website, get the address, mail it to me, I'll review it, put it in the stack, really. And I get to it, and I review it, and I'll post it. I write for Urban Bookstores, Push Nevahda Review, of course, and Blogging in Black. So
awesome.
I'll post it at one of those, whichever ones I can get it to, whatever.
And do you have a timeline for something like that? Because I know, obviously, you said stats, so you get a lot of these. So is there a timeline for you for, reviewing these books or anything that, so the list?
Well, it really depends on. I always have a stack of books to review on my desk. They're dwindling now because I'm trying to get them done. But I try to have it read and reviewed within 2 or 3 weeks. But if I don't have any other books to review, or it's a small stack, then, inside of a 2-week frame, I try to get it, because people want a review right away. They want it the next day if they can get it right. But I try to get it right back to them, and I send them an email with the link of wherever it's posted.
And obviously, if it's a long manuscript or something that they're writing, a 24-hour turnaround would not be the
right.
expectation. So anyway, so you guys hear that.
Yeah, they don't understand that. They well, people are pretty. They're humble, and they're glad to get somebody to review it. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody's on like pins and needles. Is it going to be good? What do I need to do differently? And get that view from somebody with the experience.
I've even had people read my book reviews because I'm very critical, because I do have the academic background, and people have asked me to edit their books. I'm working on a new book, edit it for me, kind of thing. So yeah, it's amazing. People really take that book review seriously, especially if it's a good review, what they would consider a good review.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they don't get a good review, and they kind of delete you off all of their pages and sites and stuff. So
oh wow, really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow.
I won't say no names.
Yeah, don't say any names, but
no,
I
won't
guess
do that.
that's kind of, yeah. And another thing I was just sitting here and I was just thinking about, if they do ask you for like editing or whatever, your time is precious. So I'm assuming that you are making sure that you're charging for those services because they're so valuable if you do actually edit something, or no?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
I know you were saying just now about editing that, you have been asked, like, to edit. Yeah, do you do that, and do you charge?
Oh, yeah, I have done. I've done 2, and I'm looking to do another one. But yeah, oh yes, of course I charge. But at this point, I've had to turn down some too because I just don't have the time and space. To edit somebody's book is time consuming, very serious thing as you could imagine, and I just don't have that kind of time.
And I know one of the things I was looking at for editing, because you would just think editing, you're thinking about probably your high school or your college days where, someone said this word or, you got this phrase or you had a fragment here. But it's not even that. It's also how you have your book set up. And maybe
it's everything.
Have things out of context.
For me, I've even talked to people about the title of the book. Everything is important, but the interesting thing is a lot of times people will send you a book to edit, and what they're really looking for, even if they don't know it, is a ghostwriter. They really want you to, rearrange their entire book, and that's not what an editor does. Which I'll do it, but they're not willing to pay the money.
How much, since we're talking about money, what's something like that cost?
Again, it depends on the book. You really look for word count, and you go from there. It could be anywhere from 600 to 800 to 5,000. It depends on.
Okay.
Depends on, the word count and the structure of the book and what they want you to do. Because if they're asking you to, and a lot of people do this, whether they know it or not, they're asking you to rewrite chapters, and this is what I want to say. Can you make it sound like this? Well, that's very expensive.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned ghostwriting. What do authors feel about ghostwriters, and have you ever ghostwritten?
Wow, that's a trick question.
I'm sorry. Did I ask too much?
Well, I'm not going to say no names regardless, but I believe I have, of course, because one of the things about being a passionate writer is when somebody, it don't have to be a manuscript. It could be, it could be anything. It could be a dissertation. I do it all. And at some point while you're going through the book, you're realizing that, it's no longer their voice, it's yours, and you're writing it for them. And I'll do it. I've done it, but a lot of people don't want to pay the money. I don't, of course, they're not, a lot of people don't even want to acknowledge you in the book, give you credit for editing it, which is fine, but that costs.
Yeah. Wow, that seems like, that is good business.
I personally do not want to ghostwrite a book for someone. Personally. I don't care what kind of
Well, what I was saying, is just so my listeners understand, when I say, that's not good business, I'm just talking about the service. When you have somebody that goes and they take the time out to edit something, you don't get anything for nothing. Everything costs, and if it's really worth it to you, then it's worth it to you. So, and then you give people credit.
Well, at the same time, when you get used to people on that level where you're editing books, you can weed out the serious people because you're serious if you're willing to pay, right, what I demand. And you can weed that out in the first conversation on the phone. You start throwing figures out there and they start getting silent and quiet, then you won't take that call no more. You know what I mean? So you weed them out. You weed them out immediately.
Okay. Now, and for ghostwriting, anybody that's thinking about getting a ghostwriter or whatever, recommend it, don't recommend it, indifferent?
What's the question? I'm sorry?
For ghostwriting, because, we hear a lot about that, about people getting ghostwriters. Is that something you recommend? And if you do recommend it, what would you recommend? Who would you recommend it for?
Well, if you're a celebrity, if you're like Jay-Z, I don't think Jay-Z got time to sit down and write a memoir. Somebody's ghostwriting that for him. We know that. It depends on it. If you watch this. If you call yourself a writer, you got no business hiring a ghostwriter. But if you're an actor, a celebrity, a ball player, and you got this busy, wonderful life in that particular profession, which had nothing to do with writing, of course, then you hire somebody to ghostwrite and you put your name, my memoir by Jay-Z. That's what they do. That's how it goes, right?
Okay.
So it depends on, but if you call yourself a writer and that's what you're trying to do, well, come on, why do you need a ghostwriter?
Very good. Well said. Well said. Now, is there anything else that you've got coming? I know you've talked about a couple. There was something else I read on your blog about Image of America. Is that part of Black Bottom community, or how does?
That's a part of an extension of Arcadia Pub. They do history books, humanities, and stuff like that, and that Black Bottom is part of the Image in America series. They do postcards also.
Okay.
So that and but at this point, I'm working on another book for them, and then I want to get my novel done. I want to end the play.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about some of your hobbies because you had some interesting things. You had some interesting things on your page, and one of them was reruns of Sanford and Son. So you still
love that.
Are those still coming on?
You can buy them. Go to rent them.
Well, yeah,
that's
true. I guess you can't do the box set.
Yeah, I don't watch TV, but I gotta have my Sanford and Son. Woody Allen movies. I love Woody Allen, and Sanford and Son. Some Twilight Zone, but I'm a diehard Sanford and Son fan, and Woody Allen.
And then, what are some of your other hobbies? I saw music or creating music, or are you?
Yes, I was in a band before, and I'm actually in the process of recording the soundtrack to the book trailer for my novel. I'm going to do that, and the Denicio Barbier novel. And, yeah, that's part of my hobby. Just really it's the way I unwind, to go into the studio and, just take a six-pack with me and guitar and just jam, really. It's a hobby.
And then I noticed that on YouTube you also have an excerpt for one of the books. Is it Push Nevahda, or is it the Detroit? I kind of briefly saw it when I was going through and doing my research.
Okay. I got trailers for both of them. So
is that something you did, or are you outsourced?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm an artist first, and anytime I can create or find some way to create for my own product, I want to do it.
Awesome. Because, I looked at some of those services, when I was kind of doing the research when I had Adrian and Christian and trying to immerse myself in, what authors do and kind of learning some of the lingo, not to be a master or anything like that. Those services are pretty expensive for doing those trailers for some of those different books.
Yeah, and on that note, and I don't want to blow anybody's hustle, but really you can do that stuff yourself. Come on, it's the technological era, right? And a lot of those programs, movie video maker is on your laptop or your computer anyway. And you can do it yourself. Yeah. Rather than pay $200 or $300 for somebody to do it, you can do your own thing. It's just about time, I guess, is how willing you are to sit down for an hour or two and do it. But to me, I've seen people pay other people, and then I've seen people who did their own. The quality is no different. Might be different in the sense of creativity, but it's really no more.
And what other kind of technology? I hear you've said technology a couple of times. What other kind of technology do you delve into that you do on your own to kind of put yourself out there and kind of doing it yourself with your with being an author? Doing your trailers.
Yeah, pretty much a trailer, the Windows, movie makers, and the media player, going into the studio, doing my own music, bringing it back home, dumping it into a file so I can upload it to the trailer. I'm really getting into that, and my next, the Denicio Barbier trailer is going to be really exciting because I'm a dramatist too, right? It's going to really, really be an exciting trailer. One that's people are just going to feel like, I got to go and buy this book. And people are interested in it.
That's what it's really about when you do that trailer. That you want to draw buzz.
Yeah. And this is really going to. I think it's going to be my magnum opus, right? It's going to be my masterpiece, I think. And I want to be have as much control over the marketing or whatever artistic direction of it as possible. Which is why I'm doing my own soundtrack and doing my own trailer.
Now, what about when we're talking about doing it on your own? Do you recommend self-publishing or going with a big publishing company?
Very good question. First of all, the whole publishing industry is just going in that direction. E-books as well. But, the people are doing good things with My first book was self-published. The second one was contract. People are doing great things, wonderful things with the self-publishing and taking it to a new level every day. And I think in the next 10 years, maybe, the majority of books that are coming out are going to be self-published. People are not just self-publishing their books, but they're starting their own companies. Samara King, she's an author, and she's doing her next book that's coming out. She's publishing under her own thing. People are doing their own thing. So the self-publishing thing is really good because it cuts out the middleman.
Sure, yeah. And I looked at some of that, and I just thought, man, that's just wow. It's almost like, or something like that, where you have the ability to get out there and do something huge just on your own, and you don't have to wait for somebody to discover you.
Yeah. And that's people are taking full advantage of it, and people are selling their books. They are marketing. Of course, it's a lot more work, but people are making a living as a self-published writer. It's happening.
And going into 2010, what are some of your goals for 2010?
Oh wow, to finish, to have 2 books out on the market and a play, touring a play locally probably because it's a local. It's going to be about Black Bottom. Touring my play and releasing the 2 books. Really, that's all I really want to do it.
For all of us out here that are listening to the show and that want to do something with writing, and we're feeling that inspiration and feeling that motivation after listening to you tonight. You sound like you pretty much have it together. Where do you start? You probably already said it already. I think I know what you're going to say.
Again, just write and don't write to publish. Don't worry about the publishing. That's going to happen. That's why you just decided to be a writer, is to get your stuff out there. But start with the smallest thing. Get a blog. Get on Black Planet. They got a blog on Black. Get anywhere you can where you can upload your stuff for free because they're out there. Web books is another one. And get into some kind of community where you can get critical feedback, particularly from other authors, and just write and start posting your stuff and getting the feedback. Find some kind of network, some kind of writers group or whatever. Writers group won't teach you how to write, but you can, be in the midst of a captive audience where you can get feedback on your stuff.
Do you get writer's block?
Yeah. Yes. As a matter of fact, I just came up out of probably 2 or 3 months of a writer's block. After I finished the Black Bottom book, I was exhausted, and I didn't write for a month or 2.
How did you push through it?
I read to get inspiration. I read Truman Capote's Summer's Crossings. I read Zora Neale Hurston biography about Valerie Boyd. I read Jack Kerouac, On the Road, stuff like that. If you can't write, then you go and read and find some source of inspiration.
Gosh, I think that's actually a good thing to actually do, and I've never actually, not that I delve in it all the time, heard somebody actually mention that. You kind of see on the TV, people getting these writer's block and they kind of don't do anything. So reading, that's a good thing. Go read and you can get past it.
Yeah, when in doubt, go get a book. Or you can do this. If you have some drafts, some sketches laying around, if you can't write, then go back through some old sketches and re-edit them. Play around with it a little bit, stuff like that. But my first advice would be, if you got writer's block, go and read.
And because we've got like a few minutes that are left here, what is it? What's your website once again? And if people want to, do anything, as far as you said, you're on Facebook. Can you just name those networks once again for anybody that's listening and want that last bit of information? I'm
going to name my website because you can get to all my other places and spaces, literary places and spaces, from the website. It's www.pushnevahda, that's PUSHNEVAHDA.com. Go there, my life story is there. Facebook, the blog, everything. Even radio interviews, everything. My life story is right there.
Yeah, I'll have to get on there and see if I can, what I'm going to come up with, because I'm kind of delving and writing something. Of course, mine is on entrepreneurs, It's my big love. Co-op advertising, that's what I do. So that's those are the groups that I have that currently I'm kind of working on. So I have to get on there and see and kind of get somebody to actually take a look at what I'm doing and see if I'm going in the right direction. So that's really, really good. I enjoyed really talking with you. I am so honored to have, authors on my show. It's an entrepreneur show, and I know some people are like, is this a good fit for this type of show? Yeah, definitely, because entrepreneurs are, you're doing whatever your craft is, you're making a living at it. Either you're doing it part-time, you're doing it full-time, you're getting a full-time income, whatever, So, I cater to all artists and, all business owners and everyone else. One of the things also, what's your very next book tour that you got, or your next event that's coming up?
I have a book lecture at West Bloomfield Library, a suburb of Detroit, January the 28th, and then from February the 6th to the end of the month, I'm going to be at all the libraries, most of the libraries in Detroit, a couple of historical societies, Detroit Historical Society, and et cetera, et cetera. Again, you can get that information from my website.
And Jeremy, we really enjoyed having you. Is there any last minute that you want to leave us, any last thought you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I do, because this has been on my mind, and I believe I did an article about it with Maven Huggins. Anyway, I believe that and this is for the black community, of black people, readers, writers, publishers, whatever you are, if we supported each other, then authors could live off of their writing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that if we supported each other, of black book reviewers and writers and publishers and whatever you do, and readers, if we supported each other and bought each other's books and reviewed each other's books, etc., then we could get more respect in the publishing industry.
I think that's actually good that you mentioned that. One of the networks they have, I don't know if they still do it or not. I'm pretty sure that they do, but I think it's called something different. It used to be something called Tag Team Marketing. And Tag Team Marketing was basically, it was black-owned, and so they really did push, black people buying black. That's kind of what they were looking at. So I could see something like that, with someone getting something like that started, a network where, that's
and it's
what
happening.
you would. Yeah.
It's happening. It's happening definitely in Detroit. I think that if Detroit is going to have any kind of rebirth or renaissance, it's going to happen in the art community with the artists. I've said this before, but it's happening now. Artists in Detroit, Adria Young, I can't talk about her enough, and Tracy Christian. People are out there not just writing the books and pumping their own stuff, but they're bringing artists and writers, not just writers, but artists, musicians, comedians, bringing them together and talking and discussing and pumping and networking. It's happening right now in Detroit. And I think
if you bring a lot of bodies together, you also bring a lot of attention.
Exactly.
And so that's good publicity when you do something like that.
Exactly.
I think that's awesome. Thank you for leaving us with that. I want to take time out right now to thank Jeremy for coming on our show. Please go to his website, look at the books that he has there. Remember my little tidbit I gave you earlier. If you know you're going to like an author, go ahead and get the books. Don't wait to order them or hope that they're going to be in the bookstore or anything like that, because you'll get frustrated. As we always do after our Blog Talk radio show, we are going to be having a summary of this on YouTube. So that'll be at www.youtube.com/RichAndRichBiz, and you can always find us on richandrich.ning.com, our network of entrepreneurs. Yeah, Jeremy, were you saying something?
Oh, one more point. And go to, if an author has a website, and you're interested in buying the book, of course, buy it from the author direct. That's very important. Support the author. I
saw that when I went to your website earlier. I see that you have PayPal, so that's better to do that when you're on those websites than to go to like Amazon.com or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Very good information.
Because if you buy it from an author website, you get them $20, then they get the $20. If you're going through Amazon or a bookstore, then they might only get 3 of that. So that's the difference. That's what I mean by support the author. Yeah.
That's huge. Okay. All right. We would like to thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me,
Rich.
Desiree.
You are welcome. You are welcome. I was so glad to have you. And just so you guys know, Adria Young actually gave me this referral, so I'm very, very grateful to her. So not only is she helping authors, I'm not an author yet, but she's helping, you know, other entrepreneurs. So that's huge. That's big. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that interview last week with Adria Young and Tracy Christian, listen to that. Listen to that. Both of those women are doing some dynamic things. You can listen to this show as much as you want to. You can hear Jeremy talk about all the wonderful things, editing, ghostwriting. You can hear it as much as you want to because this is on iTunes and we have our feed. So if you missed the show, you know, or your friend missed it and you wanted them to get on it, this is always available. It's a permanent part of my page. We also have Jeremy Williams' bio listed up on the Blog Talk Radio show. So with that, we'll say good night to Jeremy, and I'll say good night to my listeners.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.